just to show you that Ameris have developed with his own companies different product produced by this way, and very important cosmetical groups such as Givaudan, but Givaudan don't produce only cosmetics ingredient, but a large number of ingredient for housekeeping modality. And in 2023, they have acquired a major part of Ameris development concerning specifically cosmetic ingredient produced by metabolic engineering. So means that it is exactly the proof I say to you. These big company are now really interested by this development. So we are sure that in the future we will have lots of other molecules that could be produced by this way. Just to complete, because I show you that the beta-farnesen synthase chosen by Ameris come from this particular plants, Artemisia annua. And why do they have chosen this one? It was because in parallel, they were really interested by developing yeast able to produce artemisinin. So I don't want to say lots of details because I hope that the group concerned by artemisinin will give them, but just two information, because it was a very I think it was the first proof of concept and the first molecules that have been complex molecules that have been produced by this way at a scale, industrial scale. So it was quite simple. They have taken also Saccharomyces cerevisiae, and in this case, they have introduced in this gene, in this yeast cell, you see here a very bigger amount of genes, okay, with the idea to produce specifically not artemisinin, but one precursor, artemisinic acid. Because, in fact, there is also an hemisynthesis step that is completely under control, in particular by Sanofi, okay, that will be able to transform artemisinic acid in artemisinin. It is quite higher to have, it's easier to have quite a higher amount of artemisinic acid in this system instead of artemisinin. The last one, because the modification, the chemical modification needs to lots of steps, and in this moment I think they didn't know the enzymes that are encoding this last step, okay, for production artemisinin. So they have in parallel produce farnesen by adding this type of enzyme, and they have also produced artemisinic acid by modifying and by implementing all this pathway that not exist obviously in the yeast cells to produce a first precursor, amorphadien, and also the artemisinic acid. And you see here it needs a lot of enzymes encoding the different step of this. And if we take a look in details, you can see here that they have introduced a lot of genes. They have duplicated the endogenous genes. You see here from acetyl-CoA to DMAPP and also FPP, okay? All these pathways exist in the cells. But if you want to produce a new branch, you need to have a better efficiency of this first part of the pathway in order to have an increasing concentration of this precursor. So to this aim, they have duplicate, in fact, copy of genes that encode the enzyme of each step of this metabolic pathway. So they have put new ERG genes, but that come from the yeast itself. Okay, so this is, but they have genetically, introduced this new copy, of the endogenous enzymes. So they will be able to produce a very big amount of farnesyl diphosphate. And after they have completely built a new pathway, this pathway is this one, that lead to convert firstly FPP in amorphodiene and also to transform in 3-step amorphodiene into artemisinic acid. Both of these genes come from Artemisia, okay, that are able to do this bioconversion. And in this case, it means that they have included these genes that were overexpressed, and there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 external genes that was needed to introduce in order to recreate this small metabolic pathway. You see, here it is a bioconversion because they use natural intermediates and they give only the enzymes that encode the final part of the metabolic pathway of artemisinin in order to produce the final product. Okay, so it was not so much number of external genes that they were able to introduce to produce this molecule. And they succeed because when they have put all of this transgene, they were able to produce a large amount of artemisinic acid. Here are the 3 different intermediates, 4 different intermediates from amorphodiene, to acid. And you can see here they produce a large amount of one of the derivatives they want. It is artemisinic acid. So you can see that in this case they have made this new pathway, and also this is here in red. They have put several here other gene that encode squalene synthase and also repressor of the squalene synthase, because they wanted to shunt the pathway that lead to ergosterol, because it is one of the pathway that use lots of FPP precursor to create some ergosterol. Ergosterol come after in the membrane to participate to cell membrane production too. So they have disrupt some of metabolic pathway in order to oriented at maximum the flux to the artemisinic acid production. And it works. It works really. Because you see in 2006 they had some production of about 0.15 gram by liter, which was not so much, but quite interesting. And several years after, in 2013, they succeed to obtain 25 grams by liter. And at this moment, this was sufficient to develop industrial scale production. So from 2013, this company have started a pilot, industrial scale, and after they have also developed some not pilot, but normal industrial production with Sanofi, because in fact, the Sanofi taking count artemisinic acid and transform it in artemisinin. And you see here this investment from Sanofi, but here are not the investments before this date, leading to the first cell line, a yeast cell line. 15 million euros for synthetic artemisinin, to optimize the process. And what it is now quite interesting is that they have developed a very fast and efficient system to convert artemisinic acid to artemisinin. It's not a chemical one. It's they use some specific light intensity, wavelengths, and condition to application in order to provoke this cyclization, this system of cyclization of artemisinic acid in artemisinin. And you see here, this process have been included, on the chain after the bioreactor and the downstream purification of acid artemisinic, directly it is converted into artemisinin. So here it's the price that cost the production of artemisinin by this way, about $0.4 by gram. And it is really competitive to the production by plant origin, okay, by extraction from the plant. And in 2013, they officially announced, it is French, sorry, but it was the article I found too, that claimed that Sanofi with Ameris were able to produce artemisinin by this way, and they have started in 2013. And in particular, why at this moment is that because at this moment, climatic events have destroyed a large part of a natural culture of Artemisia. So at this moment, it was interesting to produce artemisinin by this way. But 2 or 3 years after, as the condition of cultivation of the plant in the field were becoming again a good condition, it was not so interesting. Okay, so they have stopped to produce artemisinin in 2015 or 16, I don't remember exactly. And but they are ready to do it again if, in any case, it will be necessary to produce more than it will be able to produce only by plants. But it was important on an economical point of view, because in fact, you know, that's very well, is that lots of people are depending of the plant culture for their own life. So it was difficult to completely stop production of artemisia, plant artemisia. So they have to find a sort of balance between both of type of production, and it will be the case in the future too. Concerning the third example I want to discuss you, to show you that it is also a success. It concerns this particular molecule, squalene. We have already heard about synthesis of squalene, because squalene is one of the intermediates of several metabolic pathway. It's not an end product by itself, but it is an intermediate. This is why it was also quite complex to have enough squalene in plants, because this squalene is mainly used to generate other terpenoid components. But it is true that this molecule, which is quite a simple one, it's a linear triterpene, as you can see here, is used by industry, in particular as adjuvant for vaccine, because it can help the active principle of the bioactive molecule of the vaccine, to be more permeant through membrane, human membrane, to access to the different targets. But it can be also used as a food complement. You can easily find on the market some capsules, including squalene or oils with squalenes. So that can be used for your health. Obviously in cosmetic, because as a sort of adjuvant too, because it help penetrating agent, and penetrating agent that can help other component of your cream, to be more efficient to enter in the skin. Sorry. So you see that it is also a molecule that can have a different use in different area domains. And here you can observe also that it is a very important market of several million euro or $1 million. And until 2030, we are expecting an increasing demand of this market. So for industrial people, it is quite interesting to know how to collect, to have enough squalene molecule for all of these markets. What it is interesting is that, in fact, I say to you, squalene is produced by plants. We know that very well, but as I already said, in a very low concentration, because it is an intermediate of the pathway, not a end product. But it exists also some animals that are able to produce these molecules, in particular shark, that accumulate this squalane in their liver. So there was a very big campaign aiming to kill, I don't mean a million of shark in order to collect, their liver, because you see in liver up to 70% of the liver mass is squalene. So it is one of the most important resource, of this molecule over the world. And this was also they have gave the name squalene for this purpose. But what it is also obviously evident is that now shark have been too much extensively killed, so they are profoundly endangering marine ecosystem. So means that we need urgently to find a way to produce this squalene in another way that it was this one. So there is two solutions for that. The first one is to see if there is other organisms, in particular in the plant kingdom, that is able to produce squalene in a higher amount than the normal one. And in fact, it has been discovered that some species, plant species, are able to have more squalene than the other, in particular olive. And you can find them, the squalene, in the oil olive. And also some seeds from amaranth, for example, that are also very rich in this squalene. But you see that in both of cases, to have enough squalene, you need to wait the complete cycle life of the plant in order to have seeds. And also for olive, it is also the same, because olives come from the fruit. So you need to have seed and fructification in order to have the raw material to extract enough squalene. But the amount was not so many important, and so it was urgent to find another way. And by this way, even if some plants are source of squalene, it is not the main branch, of production of this molecule directly. There is also another way, not mentioned on my slide. It's the chemical, biosynthesis, chemical synthesis, of this molecule. But you will see it's not so, even if it seems to be a very simple one, it's not so simple to produce. There is a nice history of this molecule that make it not so costly efficient, to produce by chemical way. So genetic engineering of microbes seems to be one of the only potential way to produce squalene at a large scale. That was evident some years ago. So they have tried to develop several platforms. And in particular, in yeast and in bacteria, both of them have been tested. Here you have the summarized where you can find some natural squalene, obviously in shark. This is here. They say that 95% of liver is squalene. I saw 70, but you see it's a high one. But here now there is also some fungi in which squalenes can be produced and accumulate. But you see here the quantity is quite low, at 0.3 milligram per gram of dry biomass, so it's not so much. Plants, I have already said, it is higher than fungi, between 10 to 300 milligram by gram of dry biomass. So it's not so big. So means that in fact we need to find several other systems. So the genetic engineering in yeast to produce squalene was quite easy, because as now you know very well, because it was the case also for artemisinin, all the precursor come from acetyl-CoA and mevalonate pathway that lead to produce this particularly precursor, farnesyl diphosphate. And naturally, this molecule can be in the yeast converted in squalene, but in a very small amount, because the squalene is a precursor of ergosterol. We have already seen that before, sorry. So this is the natural way to produce squalene. There is two limited steps for producing a high amount of squalene. This one and this one that are enzymes that have not a very big efficiency. Okay, so they can decrease the speed, the flux of the molecule production, intermediates molecule production. So at this moment, we know all the gene encoding all the enzyme able to produce each step of this metabolic pathway. The idea was to, in fact, increase the natural squalene, production. So means that firstly, we need to increase the first precursor, acetyl-CoA, that come from obviously primary metabolism, sorry. And also we have to enhance these two steps that are limiting in the natural pathway. And what was also interesting is to shunt, this ergosterol metabolic pathway in order to accumulate these intermediates squalene. So by this way, they have developed several genetic modification. I gave you here the list of what it could be done. For example, they have introduced new copies of the gene encoding HMGR and ERG9. Okay, it was the natural gene, endogenous genes. Okay. So they have the squalene synthase here, and also these particular enzymes. They have also optimized production of the acetyl-CoA by in particular, some of the enzymes upstream here are energy dependent, ATP dependent for their activity, and they need some cofactor. So they have increased, the production of this cofactor by implementing several small metabolic pathway. Okay. So that this acetyl-CoA could be more important. If you remember well, this molecule is also the precursor of not only the terpenoid, but also the phenolic compounds and two other compounds. So it was also a way they could have also many action on the different other pathway that use this common precursor, but not so much, because the cells need also the other type of metabolite for its own growth and health. It's just a question of balance every time. So they have overexpressed also several other genes instead of HMGR and ERG9, that are involved in the production of terpenes. As I said to you, they have improved the production of cofactor and supply of acetyl-CoA. They have mutated, in fact, this the enzymes that are responsible of squalene in general, squalene not bioprocess metabolism, because to shunt this sort of pathway, they have not silenced the genes because it was complex. I have not used all the methodology I showed you yesterday, but in fact they have just make some what we call mutation by radiation, by UVA, and so on. And they have tried to select some cells that naturally show an increased amount of squalene instead of ergosterol. So they start with this type of strain, and after they have implemented several other genes, okay, in order to improve production of squalene. Also, there is a parameter that it is very important to take in count. It is the ratio between carbon and nitrogen, because in fact, some of enzymes here need this particular environment to be optimized in their activity point of view. And they have not it is what they it is what they want to do now is to avoid the competing pathway by knock out the genes encoding these enzymes, because using the hazardous effect of mutagenesis under, for example, radiation or UV, you can't control where this radiation can act on the genome. So obviously they can act on one of these enzymes, but it is not under control. So now we have the possibility to control how to make knockout of genes that are involved in this short metabolic pathway. So I saw that now they have tried different way, okay, to be clean also in this in this silencing gene method. So this is what they have tried. And in fact, they have also used this different type of comment dire, strategy to do exactly the task I have mentioned now. So it's quite here perhaps complex to see. Here it's summarized with the different step of the optimization at the different moment of the process, the build of the strain, and also optimization of culture of the strain, and also the different optimization of the process, the bioreactor process. D'accord? So here it's exactly what I have already explained to you. Improvement of precursor pool by episomal expression of gene and chromosomal integration of gene towards product fruit improvement. There is a two strategy. Some of the genes are included directly in the genome of the yeast. Some other stay on plasmid that are in the cytoplasm. Okay, they are not all included in the genome. Alors why? Because in fact the techniques they use at this moment was not CRISPR-Cas9. And we have seen yesterday that the CRISPR-Cas9 had a very, very big advantage, because when you want to introduce a gene in the genome, you don't need to have some specific site marker and specific selective marker. Okay, that was normally the case. Okay, when you use the other type of techniques. So by this way, as it was not the case at this moment, in order to have not lots of introduction in any way, okay, in the genome of the cells, they use both episomic and intra, okay, integration of genes. The problem with episomic is that it is not stable, because at each division of the cells, you can lose this episomic plasmid. So this is why normally it is better to have an integrative strategy instead of this episomial strategy. As I said to you, they have dilated competitive reaction by shunting or the enzymes, or perhaps sometimes it is needed just to shunt one enzyme, not all. The first one after the squalene production, so it will be enough. So here it's also the strategy. What it is also CT-directed immunogene for expression of mutant gene. This is what the type of techniques they have used. The cofactor, I said to you, it was important to increase production of this cofactor. This is due to the fact to control the enzymes that are involved in the process of their production too. Okay. Here, I haven't said that before, but it is important. It's also to compartmentalize the pathway, okay, to have a better expression of the gene in some compartments. So means that in fact, when I show you that, in fact, not all the steps are in the same compartments. Some are in a plast, not in a plast, in a cytosol here. They are in the cytosol, but some can occur also in peroxisome, for example, or in other type of organelles. So when you add some new genes, you need to address the protein that are encoded by the genes to a specific organelle in order to be sure that it will occur exactly when you want and where you want in the cell. So this is also, they can make some compartmentalization. This is also helped by in silico stimulation or in some modelization of the pathway. So both of these two, and after there is the optimization of the process. It will be the same thing as I already explained with this other example. So that was they have done, and they have tried two types of feeding. The first one was glucose, obviously, because glucose leads to producing acetyl-CoA in a high amount by a classical primary metabolic pathways. But what it was interesting also is that they have tried to feed these cells by not by glucose, but by ethanol. And because ethanol can be also directly transformed in acetyl-CoA by the activity of this particular enzyme, ADA, acetylaldehyde dehydrogenase. So it was interesting to introduce these particular genes in order to have the possibility to convert ethanol directly, okay, in this way, knowing the fact that ethanol is naturally in equilibrium with acetylaldehyde, okay, by these particular enzymes, ADH2, that is a native ethanol dehydrogenase of the cell. So this step is natural. This one can be added in order to have a more efficient, okay, conversion for producing acetyl-CoA, which is always the first precursor of all the mevalonate pathway, okay, leading to production of squalene. What do they have done also? I think it is the only thing they have modified. And you see that the two enzymes, namely HMGR, for example, and after another one here, ERG9, but in particular this one, have been substituted by the gene of another organisms in which this enzyme is more efficient. It comes from Caelibacter pomerioi, okay, that have a better activity capacity for this step, that it is a limiting point in the natural pathway of the yeast. And by this way, they have managed different things to increase the production of squalene in this type of cells. And you see here, it is quite up 10 grams by liter, which starts to be very interesting, even to be transferred at industrial scale. Okay, ADA also come from an external system. Okay, so just these two last slide, because if a squalene cell factory is now produced from a very long time, there is new study that have been engaged, okay, and trying to propose also some amelioration, okay, of the cell line. And this new strategy are completely assisted by computational, okay, development. In particular, why? Because what it was observed is that when squalene is produced, okay, normally it is not a product that need to be accumulated in the cells. If you have too much squalene in the cell, it could be in fact counterproductive. Again, enfin, it's not a good thing. So it can be finally negative for the final cell. So it was interesting to find a way because it was a limiting point for higher production, okay, of squalene in the cell. So the idea was if we can, okay, excreted, okay, directly the squalene produced by the cell in the culture medium, it could be also a way to improve, okay, the production of this molecule in the yeast cell. So by this way, as it is not a naturally possibility of the cell, of the yeast cell to excrete squalene because it don't exist some specific transporter. They have made a very nice work using the several omic data that are available on yeast and on other organisms that are producing squalene in a higher quantity. And particularly, they were very interesting to find a new transporter, okay, that could be responsible of the exportation of the squalene from the cells to the medium culture. And in fact, they have tried to find some in other plants, but also they have looked at directly the genome of Saccharomyces cerevisiae to see if there is some of transporter that could be also able to transport this squalene, even if it's not specific squalene transporter in this yeast. So for this, they have made this workflow. It was quite nice. This is the program from in silico analysis. You have all the database of yeast. You can check the genome, transcriptome, and so on in order to identify the candidate gene encoding for probably transporter of squalene. And after you make some docking projection to see if there will be able, this transporter will be able to dock squalene, because as I said to you, they are not specific for squalene, they are specific for other terpenoids. So the idea is to see if one of them could be interesting for squalene exportation. So you make some in situ, in vitro, enfin in situ, yes, study by docking to see if squalene will be compatible to the transporter. By this way, they have selected just a small gene candidate, and after you have to validate them. Okay, so you make some cells engineered with the possibility to overexpress specifically this transporter, and after you look at if these cells are able to excrete some squalene in the medium. It is exactly what they have done, and you see, in fact, they estimate that only 3 weeks will be spent, okay, from this first analysis of the database to the possible screening of several transporters for their ability to excrete, for example, squalene. This could be applied for whatever the molecule you want to be excreted from the cells. So that it is quite a very interesting and new strategy in parallel to modifying the metabolic pathway leading to have a better amount of squalene. And here it was nice in this paper because they have compared this new methodology with a more traditional methodology that is based on, and mainly for transcriptomic data generated and transcriptomic analysis with co-expression, for example, analysis. And you see here that could take more than 2-3 days, but more than 5 to 6 weeks to do. But it is quite faster. I think they wanted to show that their methodology are a very good one, so they have a little bit exaggerate the time for several steps in this process. But here it was the same, but it was there is no modelization between the potential candidate and the potential type of molecule that could be able to interact with this candidate. So the docking is a very useful way now to have a first screening with the candidate. They directly test all the candidates. That will take more time, okay, in order to identify which transporter could be selected. You need to know that it is quite difficult to identify transporters and also to clone and to express transporter, because very often they are not a unique protein, but they are a complex protein complex with several units, or the same or different units. So transporters are not so easy to manage, and it is perhaps one of the bottleneck we have already in the comprehension of metabolic pathway, because you have already seen that some intermediates come from one organelle to another organelle, but also from one cell to another cells. So means that to go across these several membranes, they need to pass through some specific transporter. So there is lots of transporter. Some are quite ubiquitous, some are quite specific of the species, some are very strict for just one molecule, others are more large to a several set of molecules. So it is a sort of plasticity, of this type of transporter that can be a useful tool also for this type of program. So, but as it is difficult to isolate, to characterize, and also to identify, it was very important to develop this type of data, firstly, and different algorithms that will be able to analyze this data in order to propose some candidate gene. And in this case, what it was interesting, this is why it was a nice paper, is that they have predicted at least several candidates. They have tested them, and they have found at least two. The first one is named PDR5. It is a transporter of the ATP binding cassette family transporter, ABC transporter. I don't know if you have any knowledge in this domain, but it is one of the most bigger transporter family that can have a very high speciality for each transporter. They are very important, but as you can see here, they make the transport by using some energy. So it is a cost also for the nice. Okay. Yeah, yes, I see. They approve my lecture. That's good. Thank you. So you have to do the same after, no? No, it's a joke. So yes, this is interesting to see, because in fact this transporter use ATP. So it's not a passive way, it's an active way to move, some molecule from one compartment to another one. And there is another gene that name is OSH3 that encode an osterol binding homology proteins, d'accord? And this protein is not dedicated for squalene, movement, but you see it can promote squalene efflux. That it is what we are looking for, not influx, but efflux. Because also some transporters are not in the double sense of circulation, but just one sense. And so they have made new cells that are able to produce lots of amount of squalene, but with these two new genes that are expressed. You see here PDR5, that it is a membrane transporter, a very complex one. And you see here, this molecule is not really a membrane transporter, but it's a sort of carrier. more than a transporter, but they can work together, okay? And in this case, all the squalane is taken charge by this molecule, this protein, and the flux is until PDR5, where these squalanes can be excreted outside the cell. So they have found that, in fact, by this way, they can increase to 141 times, okay, the production and also the production of the time to produce in the same amount of squalane. So means that in 1 unit of time, they will be able to make more than 100 times, okay, so the amount of the final squalane accumulated outside the cells. So by this way, I think it is my last one. By this way, this number, okay, this amount of production could increase by at least 10, 20, 50 times. Okay, so it's also a way not only to have activity, genetic activity on the metabolic pathway, but on the system of metabolic circulation. I can say that it could be also a way to enhance the production. So you see the story. It's a very long story because squalane is produced by this way for a long time, but always they applied new technology in order to find a new way to optimize again and again and again the production, and also the amount of the production of this molecule in the cell yeast cell line. Okay, for today I think it's enough. Okay, I can stop, and I will reserve you my last lecture on Vinca alkaloid. Okay, thank you. If you have any question, I can answer, obviously. If not, it's your turn.